have Aurel Braun. He's a professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto. Thank you for joining us. Professor, where are we now in terms of the institutions and in terms of the politics of the country? How does this look?
This is both a political and a constitutional crisis. As you noted earlier, there had been an attempted coup. There was an impeachment of the president. There's an attempt to carry out an arrest, but supporters are trying to protect him. And it seems that it is the hope of President Yoon that somehow he can stave off an arrest until President Trump takes over the United States, and that perhaps President Trump would come to his aid and prevent his arrest, and perhaps he might be able to stay in power in South Korea. So it's very murky, but in terms of the South Korean democracy, this is a very dangerous period. It may indeed be an inflection point.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to stop on this. This is interesting because South Korean politics has impeachment situations, incarcerations, and lots of, discussions open to the public. But this seems to be a blip. This seems to be something that is quite abnormal. What kind of impact do you think it's going to have in the longer history or in the longer story of the country?
I think you're quite right to look at the longer history because you, in a sense, have to look at the arc of history. In the case of any democracy, and South Korean democracy is relatively young. After the Second World War, after the Korean War, essentially there was a dictatorship, a military dictatorship, and that democracy began to thrive. It began to be entrenched. The institutions were developed that were viable. South Korea became a spectacularly successful economy, internationally competitive, but it has continued to face a huge threat from the North. And the North now has, North Korea has nuclear weapons, and North Korea now has also entered into a stronger relationship with Russia, which many in South Korea view as very threatening. So this has added up to a major concern among many in the political realm, but they are looking at it and are trying to handle it differently. And clearly, President Yoon went to what was viewed by many as an extreme step to try to impose martial law to deal with the problem. And this was quickly rejected. They had to back down. And of course, when you try to impose martial law in a democracy, and in a sense you misfire, if you create a constitutional crisis, there is a price to be paid. And so the big question now is, what is the price going to be for President Yoon? But also, in the longer term, how much damage is there to democracy and to institutions in Korea, which has seen certainly very vigorous political debate, sometimes even sort of physical manifestations of it, but not in this kind of crisis. And this is both major and threatening.